Right, welcome to Uncle Stu's Saturday morning vintage matinee. My attempt at helping to keep boredom at bay for people while we're on this lockdown. And this is actually one of my favourite videos from the very early days of the channel, complete with very poor sound quality and what I have to say is a very wooden narrative voice. This was my very first Motone video. And it's actually one of my favourite videos. I had a lot of fun experimenting and playing around with special effects and such like while I was making this. But then I had the time to do that kind of thing because I only made one video a week then. Now this video features some of Motone's early custom parts which I think are still available. And I will of course leave a link to their site in the video description down below. Now what I mean is these parts were designed for the older air-cooled twins, but were compatible with the new liquid-cooled twins. And of course these days Motones have a whole slew of liquid-cooled specific parts if these don't suit you. Now this was all shot at Fort Paul, a local sort of ancient monument, and I have shot a few videos there over the year. Unfortunately it's now closed down. One of the key members of staff died. It was a registered charity and they were unable to continue keeping it open, which is sad. Hopefully we will one day see it back open again. So, call the usherette over, get yourself a choc ice and settle back. Cap it all off with Motone Customs. Here we go. The T120 is something of an enigma. At face value it looks like something from the middle of the last century, yet it's bristling with bang up to date technology and it handles and performs just like most other modern bikes. It's a strange but satisfying mix that's absolutely ripe for customization. Now Triumph have designed this bike with customization in mind and they produce a huge range of accessories and custom parts. But to my mind some of the best custom parts don't come from Triumph at all, they come from some of these third-party specialist companies like Motone. Now Motone Customs have been around for some time and they're well known for the huge range of custom parts designed to fit the old Hinckley Bonnevilles. It's taken some time but they're just getting ready to roll out a new range of parts for the T120 and the Street Twin. But if you can't wait for that and you want to start with something relatively simple, there are a few items designed for the old Hinckley Triumphs that will fit the new T120. The cap on the brake reservoir for the T120 is pretty much standard fare for all manufacturers. There's nothing wrong with it, but it does lack a little bit in style. It's your usual precision die cast piece, bearing the usual manufacturer's warnings and specifications. I chose the black Motone replacement with the Motone emblem on it. This is no mass-produced die-cast piece. This is CNC machine from aluminium billet. It's a very precise fit and it comes complete with two stainless steel Allen screws. It's more of an angular piece than the curved Triumph item, but I think it is a very stylish addition to your bike. It is of far better quality than the original item, and it literally just takes a couple of minutes to fit. The coin slot style oil filler cap is a nice authentic touch that dates back to motorcycling's early days. and it's one of those features that originally endeared me to the Triumph. The thinking behind this coin slot was that on the old leaky oil burning bikes that needed to be topped up once or twice a week, you always had a coin in your pocket, so you always had the means to open it. Unfortunately, this doesn't really translate into modern life. The Triumph doesn't burn or leak oil, and the chances are you're rarely going to have to remove this in between oil changes. The end result is that it becomes stuck fast over time, and the leverage that you get with a coin simply isn't enough to move it, and you'll end up having to use a large screwdriver. It's made from a soft chrome-plated brass, and without a suitably sized and shaped tool to open it, it soon gets bared and chewed up at the edges. Motone Customs answer is this much larger, easy to handle aluminium oil cap. Its design and larger size means it's much easier to grip with your fingers and easier to remove by hand. But if you do find you can't shift it, you can still use a 6mm Allen key on the socket in the centre. Now finally we come to the petrol cap. Now over the years, especially with the old Hinckley Bonnevilles, Triumph took a lot of flack over the fact that they weren't lockable. With the new modern classic range, Triumph responded with this lockable low-level fuel cap. It is a good looking twist off cap, but unfortunately something's got lost in the translation here and Triumph haven't got it quite right. The central disc swings away to reveal the lock, and obviously it requires the key to be inserted to unlock it so that you can remove it. The problem is you can't remove the key until the cap has been locked again, so you need to keep the key in whilst you remove the fuel cap. Now if you'll pardon my French, this is a right buggering about, and it makes refueling your bike a lot more difficult than it should really need to be. Motone have come to the rescue with this non-lockable screw-on cap. Just like the oil filler cap, this has been spun from aluminium billet, and it has a very solid, high quality feel to it. It does sit at a much higher level than the original cap, but this means that it's very easy to grip with one hand to remove it. It also has the added benefit that sitting well up above the tank, it doesn't create a blind spot around the fuel filler neck where dirt, grit and water can collect. With the original item, this is concealed and it actually requires removal of the fuel cap to dry or polish around the fuel filler neck, and to me this makes things a little bit more convenient. Now the parts that I've shown you today are simply the options that I chose as suiting my tastes. There are other colour options and designs available. I'll leave a link for each individual item that I've shown you here today so that you can have a look at them and view the current prices. You can then backtrack through their website and look at the other options that are available if these don't suit you. These parts are all British made in-house by the guys at Motone, and they are of outstanding quality. As I said at the beginning of this video, they are about to unroll a whole host of new custom products available for the T120, so keep an eye open for the new releases. Right, an acknowledgement. I would just like to thank the management and staff at the Fort Paul Museum in the East Riding of Yorkshire for granting me their kind permission to come onto the premises with the bike to film this video. Now, Fort Paul is a coastal defence battery from the Napoleonic era run by the Fort Paul Heritage Trust. Now, this is a non-profit organisation whose only aim is to preserve and, where necessary, restore this historic building. It was abandoned by the Ministry of Defence back in 1960 and went through decades of neglect before the Trust took it over about 17 years ago. It is still very much a work in progress, but it is well worth a visit. It's only about 15 minutes ride from the Hull city centre, just east of Hull, so if you're visiting Hull for the City of Culture celebrations this summer, put a couple of hours aside to go and have a look. I'll leave a link for their website in the video description. Right, that's it for this week. Haven't made my mind up what I'm doing next week, but I'm sure I'll find something. Until then, I'll see you next time.